Anina heard the screams of her mother and the voice of a child. She ran to the side of a woman, very happy and crying. Her mother said, Anina, this is your sister, Akong. She was named after her father that had died 1 month ago in an accident, but his body was never found. Her mother held her hand and squeezed it tight. Take care of your sister, she said. Then she died, leaving an 8-year-old there for her sister. With a lot of difficulties, Anina was able to raise Akong into a beautiful girl. She worked in the palace as a servant and she was able to raise money to raise her sister. Anina made sure Akong had everything and she would die for her. Are you happy for your 18th birthday? What do you want? I'll give it to you, Anina said. I want a beautiful sunflower pin. I want to put it in my hair, Akong said. Okay, I'll get it for you, Anina said. Otim set his eyes out for Akong. There was something about Otim that made women fall hopelessly in love with him. His charm was undeniable, his dark eyes magnetic, his body very strong that drew women into him like moths or flame. And just like that, he had pursued Akong and won her over. But Otim carried a deadly secret. It is my 18th birthday today, Akong said. I'll give you what you have been asking for. Otim and Akong lay romancing in bed, gently caressing her skin, the soft glow of the moonlight casting shadows across their bodies. The air was thick with warmth and passion. Otim, known for his magnetic charm, leaned closer to Akong, his dark eyes sparkling mischievously. He brushed her cheek with the back of his hand, his voice low and painful. Baby doll, he whispered. If you see a snake, would you kill it? Akong paused. Caught off guard by the question, she blinked in surprise, the mood slowly shifting from intimacy to confusion. What? She asked, a frown forming. You are killing the mood routine. What kind of question is that in the middle of this? Otim was persistent, his grin fading as he repeated, serious this time. If you see a snake, would you kill it? Irritated, her eyes searched his face for a clue, wondering if this was some kind of twisted joke. I would, she said with frustration. Wrong answer. Otim shifted suddenly, and before Kong could react, he began humming. The sound was soft at first, but the volume kept on increasing. Okong stared at him, confused and growing nervous. What are you doing? She asked, sitting up. The hums grew louder, more consistent, and as if summoned by magic, something stirred in Otim's pants. Okong's eyes widened in disbelief as a long snake began to emerge from his unzipped trousers. Its glossy scales out in the dim light, its head was raised. Akong screamed in pure terror as the snake lunged at her. Its fangs sank into her neck. She collapsed into bed, her body moving violently before going still, her lifeless eyes staring at the ceiling. By morning, the village was buzzed with the shocking news. The woman had been found in the village square, her body pale and lifeless from a venomous snake bite. Anina was told. She quickly ran and saw the body belonged to her sister. She saw the sunflower pin she had given her. Anina cried the whole day with a pin in her hand. Akong was buried. Anina was left alone with no family. Unknown to the village, Otim, unlike other men, didn't have a normal manhood. Instead, he possessed a snake, one that lived inside his pants, summoned by a hand. Each time he seduced a woman, he hummed, unleashing the serpent from his pants. The following months, many women were found dead with the same bite marks. Rumors began to spread Some claim to hear a strange hum the night before the women were found dead in the village square, but no one dared to think it was Tim, a handsome builder who constructed many of the village huts, was the killer. But who would suspect him? One afternoon, Tim made his way to the village well, where women gathered to fetch water. As usual, his presence was a stir that made women blush and jiggle and whisper amongst themselves, hoping to catch his eyes. But today something was different. Among the crowd stood a woman who Tim had never seen before. She was breathtakingly beautiful, her skin glowing in the sunlight, traditional attire very beautiful with vibrant colors. Her beauty reminded him of one of his victims at home. She was very beautiful, just like her. As the woman approached the well, every man and woman in line stepped aside, mesmerized by her beauty. Tim, used to being the center of attention, found himself captivated. Wasn't she falling for him like all the others? Determined to win her attention, Tim placed his 6 back-ups under the bright sun, certain that no woman could resist him. But she barely glanced at his way before turning her back. Frustration burned inside Tim. Why wasn't this woman falling for his charm? Every other woman in the village was dying for him, yet she acted as if he didn't exist. His irritation grew as they scooped water from her pot, splashing him in the process. "Would you help me carry this?" she asked, her voice smooth, her tone indifferent. Tim clenched his jaw, his ego bruised. Other men immediately offered to carry the beauty's pot, each trying to outdo the other. But Tim, seeing the competition, swallowed his pride. He lifted the pot onto his head, determined to prove himself. As they walked to the woman's house, she introduced herself properly. "Anena," she said. "That is my name." "And who are you?" "Oh, Tim," he replied. "But probably you already know that, right?" She smirked. "I have heard. The women have been talking." Tim's ego swelled again, but before he could vote, Anena added, "You are handsome, but you're really not my type, though." It hurt Tim so much, but Tim forced a smile, determined not to show his anger. His mind promised to teach Anena a lesson she would never forget. He said he had a lot to offer her, and she would focus on his inside and not his outside. In his mind, he said she should focus on his pants. They reached Anina's house for dinner. In the evening, Anina was very curious about what he did. She had heard a lot about Tim, but wanted to know the truth from him. Anina asked, "Do you do anything for a living?" Tim smiled humbly and replied, "I'm a builder. They say that the snakes are killing women." Tim shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his face growing unserious. "Yes, I have heard about the snakes too. Strange, isn't it? It only seems to target women, mothers, sisters, daughters. None of them are safe. I wonder why it doesn't target men. It is truly sad. No one knows why." Anina's eyes widened, her curiosity getting the better of her. "And what about that strange hanging sound? Villagers say they hear it at night before the women are found at the square. I've tried copying it, but it doesn't sound right." She attempted to hum, but it came out flat and weak. Tim, feeling uncomfortable, laughed nervously. "It's not something anyone can copy. They say the snakes have their own language, and the hum is how they speak to one another. If I ever hear that hum, I will be the first to jump in and fight that snake." "It's rare to find someone who is willing to fight for a woman he loves," Tim said. Over the next few weeks, Tim did everything in his power to win over Anina's affection. He showered her with gifts, beautiful dresses, jewelry, and anything her heart desired. No woman had ever resisted him this long, and it drove him mad. But Anina was different. She refused to give in, insisting that they must first get married before they become intimate. Otim grew more frustrated day by day. He found himself doing things he had never done, like fetching water for Anina every day and rinsing the hut with fresh cow dung to make it look shiny. His obsession with winning Anina's love had consumed him, and soon he found himself falling for her. Not just for the challenge she presented, but for the way she made him feel. All he wanted now was her validation and her heart. One day, while Otim was at his hut, he hummed to let the snake out for fresh air. The snake crept out of his pants, and its scales shining. But as Anina approached, he quickly hummed, sending the snake back into his pants. He couldn't let her see it, not yet. That evening, as Otim fetched water for Anina at the well, a storm began to blow. Dark clouds gathering into the sky, and the wind blowing through the trees. The women who admired Otim couldn't hide their jealousy any longer. They shouted at Anina, cursing her for playing hard to get. "Tim loves you," one woman shouted. "Why are you pretending? If you don't want him, give him to us." Anina, humiliated and frustrated, turned to Otim. "Give me my pot. I'll carry it by myself." But Otim refused. He glared at the other women, his voice cold. "None of you could ever be like Anina. This is why I chose her. Don't you villagers?" The women fell silent, their faces burning with shame. As Anina and Otim walked away, Nina glanced at Otim with a small smile playing on her lips. "What?" Otim asked. "I love you," she said softly, leaning in to kiss his neck. Otim was caught off guard. He put down the pot and hugged her tightly. "Are you serious?" he asked, grinning like a fool. Anina nodded, and as the rain began to fall, they ran into the house, laughing like children. Once inside, the atmosphere shifted. The house was warm, and the storm outside only intensified the intimacy. The rain drummed steadily on the thatched house as Otim and Anina sat beside each other, their breath lingering in the damp, chilly air. A flicker of nervousness ran through Otim for the first time in his life. Anina had made him wait, teased him with a hard-to-get attitude, and now, finally, there they were, alone in a bedroom. Anina shivered slightly, not just from the cold, but from the tension between them. As she was still drenched from the rain, her dress clung onto her form. Otim reached for her hair, his hand brushing against her weak skin. His heart pounding, excitement coursing through him as he leaned to kiss her neck, his lips tracing the curve of her shoulder. The room was silent, except for the soft breathing. As they lay on bed, Anina's heart raced, her mind battling the wheel of emotions within her. She felt something unsettling between Otim's calm, but she decided to follow her heart. Otim's hand slid down her back as he whined to himself. Finally, he thought. She thought she was so special, didn't she? But here she is, just like all the others, ready to open her legs for me. He could barely contain the wicked satisfaction within him. In his mind, he whispered, "I have you right where I want you, Anina." A twisted smile appeared on his face, and his eyes gleamed as he spoke. "Anina, baby doll." Anina said. "If you find a snake, would you kill it?" Tim's voice dripped with malice. Anina's eyes flew open, her brows frowning in confusion. "What?" she said, pulling back slightly. What are you talking about? You are killing the vibe. Otim's smile widened and his voice took on a mocking tone. No, seriously. If you see a snake, would you kill it? He stared at him, confusion turning into frustration. Why are you asking this? She asked, irritated. Fine, I don't know. Is it? Tim's brain turned into a predator. They both raised their heads when provoked, and in a blinked, stunned by his strange answer. But something shifted in the air, a coldness that replaced the heat between them. Her instinct flared in. There was something deeply unsettling about his words. Otim leaned closer, his eyes darkened with anticipation. Tell me, he demanded. Anena, now on the edge, didn't like where this was going. Otim, stop this, it's weird. But Otim's expression didn't soften. He repeated more firmly. Tell me, Anena. Desperate to diffuse the confusion. I would kill it, she said, because it's dangerous. She crossed her arms, glaring at him, hoping her words would end the bizarre conversation. But Otim let out a cruel, chilling laughter that echoed in the room. It was the kind of laughter that made Anena's stomach drop. He leaned even closer, his breath hot against her ear. Then I want to hear you scream. In an instant, he opened his mouth, preparing to hum, his eyes gleaming with a sinister glance. He leaned even closer, his breath hot against her ear. Then, I want to hear you scream. In an instant, he opened his mouth, preparing to hum, his eyes glimmering with a sinister glare. But before he could make a sound, Anena's fist flew open, striking him square in the throat with all her strength. Otim gasped, clenching his neck in shock. Anena wasted no time. She started humming. The hum was similar to the tune of Otim that he used to summon the snake. Otim's eyes widened in terror and disbelief as the snake began to emerge from his own pants. Its silk, scaly body slid out, its sharp eyes looking into him, ready to strike. Anena didn't stop. She continued to hum, commanding the snake with perfect precision. The serpent lunged its fangs into Otim's neck. How did you? Otim stammered, his voice hoarse as he choked on his own venom. He screamed, his body moving violently as the venom surged through his veins. He collapsed onto the floor in agony. Anena, with steady hands, pulled out a hidden knife in her waistband. With one smooth motion, she cut the snake, its head rolling across the floor, lifeless as she stumbled down on it, crushing it beneath her bare heel. Otim's body movement on the floor, his face was pale, his breath was shallow. I am Anena. Akong was my sister. You killed her. I had to revenge her death. You killed her and left me with no family. He tried to speak, but only a weak whisper escaped from his mouth as he struggled to grasp the air. She called out the guard who arrived with the king and the queen of Golo Kingdom. Anena was the most trusted servant disguised as a mere woman. Otim's eyes grew big in disbelief as he stared at them. No, this can't. How did you? You didn't really think you could keep your secret forever, did you? Anena's voice was cold and malice. I'm a servant of the king. You're nothing more than a monster who thought would keep terrorizing our people. Otim gasped for air, the venom already paralyzing his limbs. How did you? He choked on his own breath. Nena stood above him, her eyes cold and unforgiving. I have been pretending so that we could finally capture the snake that has been terrorizing our village. They knew it was not an ordinary snake, Otherwise, it wouldn't target women. Only the person who mastered the harm could order the snake to attack. Anenani Otim was a serial woman killer, and he could never truly fall in love. No matter how much he pretended to, Anena waited and followed him until he fell into her trap. Now, there, he lay in a room, turning pale from the venom, his eyes in shock, the life slowly draining from his body. They dragged him outside the village square, where villagers gathered to witness the devil himself and the end of the terror that had plagued them for so long. The women who had once admired Otim now spat on his lifeless form, their face twisted with disgust and anger. Was nothing but a snake in disguise. Could we have been so blinded and fallen for such trash? The women shouted, shaking their heads. By dawn, Otim's body, along with the snake's head, was burnt in the fire in the village square. The flames erasing any trace of horror he had inflicted on the kingdom. As the sun rose, Anena and the king stood before the people, the villagers bowing low in respect and bowing low for Anena to forgive them. One woman said, tears in her eyes, "We didn't know it was you. We never meant to insult you." Anena smiled kindly, her heart softened by the people's remorse. "There is nothing to forgive," she said. "You didn't know." They bowed deeply before the king and Anena, for this was the first time they had laid their eyes on the king. She spent most of his time in the palace, and more people wanted to see him. So when they saw the king, they were surprised and perplexed, but they were also happy to see the king. Anena was now promoted to the king's advisor and given a large sum of money for capturing the snake. The villagers couldn't help but marvel at what had just happened. Not only had they been in the presence of royalty, but their village had been saved from the terror that none of them could ever imagine. A man with a snake for manhood, a psychopath who had preyed on the women for so long. Who could have ever believed such a thing existed? As the king and the queen vanished from sight, a sense of relief washed over the village. They had spared their lives forever. Anena was a hero throughout the kingdom, and her name would be remembered for generations as the woman who had outsmarted a serial killer with a snake manhood and freed the village from terror. So the kingdom of Kulu strived once again, its women safe and its people united with peace. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories.